Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Sultans of Security. You're with Shane and Shawn, and we're broadcasting today. It's July 8th, just past the holiday weekend. It was during the week, unfortunately, but we survived somehow. And today we're going to be speaking with Shawn, kind of primarily focused on where he's coming from, his background. And without any further ado, Shawn Dennis.
Thank you, O wise and noble sage. Yeah, it was an interesting week. I hate when there's holidays in the middle of the week. It's a little broken up. And then right now for me it's a little bit weird. I'm solo here in Texas. The rest of the family is living the cooler life in California. Um,
Nice.
Wife is training. The kids are been playing on the beach and hanging out with their aunt and uncle. So, and here it's been a little cooler, but then now the devil's going to shine its hot breath on us again starting tomorrow into next week again. So, 100-degree temperatures, real feel maybe like 115, 120. So, super excited.
Yeah. Yeah, we're hovering in the 80s and 90s here in Baltimore with the humidity. So that's always fun to glisten as you sweat and yeah, so I feel you.
So,
But
as Shane said, this episode will be a little bit more talking about my background. I think I've touched on it before. I've over almost 25 years working in facilities, a little over 20 years working in security, done different stints in security. Um, my law enforcement experience was as an auxiliary police officer in Bel Air for almost 4 years. So, I'll talk about that. Initially got into security thanks to Shane. And yeah. Uh, my first real exposure to work in security work, and definitely the non-conventional security work, working in maritime security. Definitely different. I really wasn't sure what to expect going into it. Um, but it was a very good learning experience to dip my feet into private security. Um, Learning about the different facets. Again, we talked about it in the first episode, I think. Working in an environment where all these different products were being shipped in, and learning about the products and the process and then all the security that goes along with it. Working at a facility that is owned by a private company, but you have involvement with the federal law enforcement agencies, between the railroad police, customs and border patrol, the Coast Guard coming on the property because you have ships coming in with foreign nationals, um, items being brought in via rail car, coal being coming in, so depending upon where the situation fell on the property was whether or not you're calling railroad police, we call them the city police because it's right outside the gate, or are we
county police in
calling,
some cases, right? Or
yeah, so or calling in customs or the Coast Guard and like, hey, we got a situation with the ship.
right. Or
So
yeah, Johnny will come lately. Just walked off the ship and he didn't come back. So we need to let you know that sort of
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. So, also, I mean, I guess I like working at night. I'm more of a night owl than a morning person. So, interesting doing a lot of this work at night, overnight. Um, I remember one of the outside of that location. I remember the one time you called me and said, "Hey, can you help me work a lumber ship coming in?" And here's the address. You pulled up Yield MapQuest and MapQuested the directions and printed those out, and then had to go take a nap because I was supposed to meet you at 3 o'clock in the morning. That's when the
Right.
boat was scheduled to arrive, and that's when it did arrive. And it's just the two of us on the water at 3 o'clock in the morning, welcoming this ship to the pier as it tied up, and then sat there. So it was an abbreviated shift. Since the time of the arrival, but then the next crew, the next shift of officers came in to cover it. But again, just staying there was just like, it goes into a phrase I've used a lot in my life because I've had a lot of variety of jobs. Always trying to, I guess it's the hustler and the hustler nature and the dentist family, I guess. But always legit jobs, not some of the hustling like my dad and uncles did in their life. Um,
Right.
not
Like
not
look at this, and then like
yeah,
magicians, nothing like
yeah,
that.
not
Yeah.
not pimps and prostitutes, but always always trying to find a way to make an extra buck. Um, but it goes into the phrase is like the things I've done for money in my life, and
Right.
I say that, and then people look at me like, then
Yeah.
I had to
Do
have
tell.
had the caveat of like, I've worked in a plastics factory making parts for airplane controls and private aircraft, and that was a summer job because I had a neighbor that worked for them and needed a job for the summer at home from college. Where I learned a whole new set of skills, that I've applied over my years in facilities and everything. Working for a sign installation company, again, to make extra money after the arrival of my son. Besides working a full-time job, I was working with them part-time, 20 hours a week,
Right.
on the side of the road, putting up signs for new developments or helping make custom signs and all this other stuff. Working as an electrician's apprentice for a summer, which wasn't much of a stretch since my dad was an electrician.
There you
Um,
go.
so I've
Did you
done
teach him? I would say, did you teach the electrician more than he knew?
uh, I feel sometimes
Or
I asked him questions, and I felt, you could tell he felt a little challenged sometimes with the questions like, how do you know this? I was just like, well, at that point, my dad's been an electrician for 30 some years. So I was like, I know a thing or two. I started pulling wire with my dad when I was 7 years old in new construction homes as a means
wow.
to spend time with my dad on the weekends because he was always so busy working. So,
Right.
um, yeah, like I said, I've done a lot of things that unknowingly to where I'm at now, the business I'm at now, the organization I'm with, like all of those things have come together in one um, area, which I never would have thought they would have synced up so well for this one job I have now. Um, but like I said, going back to beta, got a lot of experience with Shane. That was almost 5 years. I think I stopped working the first time with beta
Mm-hmm.
in 2007. 2007 was a year I was wrapping up a lot of things. I was wrapping up my bachelor's degree finally. Um, so leading up to that too, fall of 2003, that's when I, inspired by Shane again and his wife, and I think and also the events of 9/11. I had switched my major in college. Originally started college as a physics major. Uh, then
I
that
don't
fell off.
picture you as a, like the,
No,
I
yeah,
don't know, but you definitely got the intelligence for it. That's for sure. But
it wasn't.
I'm drawing a Big Bang theory, and I'm thinking
Yeah,
Sheldon. You
yeah,
know.
it was. It wasn't. I wasn't looking because at the time I was looking at colleges, there was a new field developing called engineering physics. So it
Hmm.
was the practical application of physics in the engineering environment. Not every school had it. A school in Florida I applied to that I got accepted into, um, but they didn't want to offer me any money in financial aid. So I said I can't afford to move all the way to Florida and know that I'm not probably going to spend time in class. I'm going to go to the beach and play volleyball
Huh.
and marry some surfer girl or something like that. So um, I started Maryland physics major since they didn't have engineering physics. So I was looking to use it for practical application. I wanted to do something with engineering. Um, took my first physics class. It didn't go very well. I withdrew early from it. And then I was just like, screw this. I'm done. Went and changed my major from physics to English. And so thought process was I'll become a technical writer. So I can still work in the engineering field, but you need somebody who can speak the engineer's nerd language, I guess, as a kind
Right.
term, and translate it for the lay person that has to read the manual on how to assemble something at home. So that was the kind of thought. So started hammering all these English classes, which were, fairly easy things. Then 9/11 happens, right? And as many, I'm sure,
Yes, it
penny in the
does.
country did, it changed the whole thought process on a lot of things. You know,
Oh
started
yeah. I mean,
thinking,
we talked about it. I'm sorry to cut you off, but we talked
yeah,
about it in the initial video about, you know, the whole maritime industry was a result of 9/11, the change that went into it with customs and TWIC and all that. So yeah, everyone's got the broad experience, but all personal experience as well.
and at this point, when 9/11 happened, I was working full time at the university. I'd gotten my full time job um, in April of '98. Had the opportunity, the new recreation building opened. The director wanted somebody. The job I was doing as a student employee turned into a full time job for me. I applied. There's a couple of people that applied for it. I was offered the position, and so only 3 years into my college career, I go from full-time student, part-time employee to a full-time employee, part-time student, which was a unique experience having to go from, I had a guy that I worked with that I've been going to school with since fifth grade. Him and I were roommates our freshman year. We worked together in the same area, the department of the campus. And within a span of a week, I go from being a peer to his boss.
Oh,
So, as a very young professional, I mean, young professional being I was just 21 years old,
yeah,
which was a very interesting learning experience in itself. Um, so, again, for a period of time working at the university, it's just like, oh, this is just his job, just until I do something else. This is just the paycheck. It's got benefits, to help pay for my degree and stuff like that. So I looked at, like, well, now that I'm working full time, I can get tuition remission, work on my degrees and not have to, that a lot of stress off of me. No more student loans, can start paying off the other
sure.
student loans I have and those kind of things. So like I said, with events of 9/11, I molded over. I started thinking about, should I apply for law enforcement? Because I guess to back up a quick second, back in high school, my plan was my dream was to attend the Naval Academy. I had a
Hmm.
grandfather that served 36 years in the Navy. My father served time in the Navy. Um, all my grandfathers, my uncle, they all served military service. So I was like, okay, I need to serve in the military. It's something I have to do. Did the whole thing, applied. Unfortunately, test scores, I guess with test anxiety and test scores, SAT scores can never crack high enough for the application. So I was like, well, okay, well, then I'm just going to enlist after high school. And my dad's like, the hell you are. You're too smart for that. He's like, you're too smart to go in as a grunt. He's like, you're going to college. And being the obedient son that I was like, okay. So that's what I did.
As you wish. Right.
As you wish. My sister, on the other hand, was a little bit different. She didn't, and that's a whole nother story. Um, so went to college. Things happened. 9/11 happened, and again, thought process shift. Watching you start the police academy and going through the police academy, and meeting Nancy, your wife.
Yeah.
It was very inspiring. So I was just like, okay, this is what I need to work on doing. So went and changed my major again to criminal justice at school, and started working all the things in that. And so, like, okay, what do I need to do? In order to round myself out, for when I apply, because I was like, I should finish my degree first before I apply. Because I was taking one class a semester because I was working full time, newly married in 2002.
Mm-hmm.
So all of those things, newlywed bliss. So then I was just like, well, sought out. I talked to other people that I known about for experience and those kind of things, and they said, well, if you can get on with an auxiliary unit, you should do that. At the time, did research. Only two agencies in the state of Maryland had auxiliary units. That was Baltimore County and Bel Air in Harford County. And more research. Baltimore County was going to be a lot of time. It was going to be very time consuming for the training. It was going to be, I forget how many weeks or months on Saturdays, and it's like, well, I work. I don't have time. I can't afford to not
Right.
work.
Going to school, going to work, and now you
Working
want
full
to
time.
tackle, an academy to it.
Yeah. So going for the auxiliary. So I was just like, well, then let me talk with Bel Air. So I interviewed, was offered a position. There was training, not to the dedicated time. There was initial training to start on there. So I got in with them. Was with them almost 4 years. I interviewed for an actual entry level officer position with them. They had one opening up, and the interview board was really impressed with my time because I did, with my interview. I spent a lot of time. Even one of the guys on the interview board was a sergeant that I did a lot of ride-alongs with. Like, I think with the auxiliary, we only required 40, 16 hours a month of service. We got time
Okay.
because we had once a month meeting. I think it was somewhere around there. We had to do 16 hours a month. I was averaging 40 to 60 a month. And again, that's
Wow.
that's on top of working full time and um, working on a college degree, being newly married. Um, and then some point in there too, I was working beta with you. So I
Right.
was So I was doing beta part-time. I was working full-time with the university, still kind of establishing that role there, my position and learning that, being married and taking college classes. Um, I mean, because it was all about trying to gain experience. It wasn't, I was on with some people that used it because they thought they had some power with it and kind of, you know, playing cop, which some officers saw that, other officers, I asked questions, I tried to work, I tried not to be a nuisance to some senior officers. I tried not to be too over eager or anything like that. But I started to ride on a regular basis with certain officers because they were willing to have you along. Um, and obviously, I'm sure the officers talk amongst each other, and they say this person's a good egg, or don't want this.
Yes, they do. And I'm just saying that as a general term, but just from again my own experience of, hey, that there's that new person, how are they working out, and you've got your your cadre, you've got your chain of command, but then like in the military or the army, they call it about the E4 mafia. You've got the boots that are on the ground saying this is a good person, look out for him, or this person really wants to learn, or the opposite if they're not really working out.
Right. So, and with that, with a lot of officers, so I would go. So the town of Bel Air used the auxiliary force as a supplementary to provide police presence because the town of Bel Air liked to host a lot of events, chocolate festival, wine festival, and the town of Bel Air is only 3 square miles, right? Sometimes, I mean, there's been instances where there's only 3 sworn officers on the road for the town of Bel Air working a shift, which is not a lot, but you have a lot of bars within like a half square mile of each
Yes.
other.
Right.
A lot of retail. There's a mall there. Other little strip malls. There's a lot of retail to deal with theft and incidents there. Um, getting out at closing time from the bars, as you can
Oh
imagine,
yeah.
a lot of drunk
To
potential drunk driving and things. Um, so it stays kind of busy actually, except for when it
yeah.
rains. Except for when it rains, and then you can sit in a car for 8 hours and do nothing. But um, so I got to do riding with. So I would volunteer for events on Fridays. Event, you got this event that needs coverage. Okay, I'd work all day. I work 8 hours at the university, drive from College Park all the way up to Bel Air, change, work the detail, and then depending upon what time the detail was over, if it's still during second shift, that I was like, I'd find an officer if I could ride with, because policy was auxiliary had their own car, but if you were going to ride in the car, you're supposed to have 2 auxiliary officers in ride in the car. You weren't really supposed
Yeah,
to
it makes sense.
ride by yourself, so you don't do anything stupid. Stupid in pairs, not stupid in singles.
Yes. Have your
Um,
backup.
right, and then see who's working third shift and see like, hey, or like midnight shift, you're like, hey, can I ride a bit? And then because usually after the bars let out, then it was usually pretty quiet, so it could stay busy on a Friday and Saturday night till about 3 a.m. And then after that, I just kind of did the downhill slide after that. So I would work, I'd get there about 4 o'clock and potentially could ride till 2 or 3 in the morning. Um, doing different things and gain a lot of experience. And it solidified that I really wanted to pursue law enforcement because I remember one ride along when it was really on, it was cold. I was riding with a sergeant, and it was the time when first Sirius XM came in a little box, a little receiver that you put in your
Oh
car,
my gosh. Yeah, we're dating
and
ourselves, but yes.
you had to jack it in through like either the cassette adapter in your car or if you had an auxiliary jack and everything like that. And so he's rocking. It's a fight call at a bar, and we're running code, and he's got Enter Sandman jamming in the car loud enough so we can hear it, but not so loud that when he's talking on the radio as we're driving code, it's around midnight, maybe a little after, and
Hmm.
we're getting it like, and I am amped, right? We're getting closer. He's like, take your seatbelt off. He's got to get out of the car quickly. And I just remember getting there and just, it's kind of like that one ride along I did with you, where I thought we were going to crash into the mall for the theft call where the lady assaulted the mall security and everything. Like got out of the
Hmm.
car and I'm still just smelling like the brakes on the car, the police car
Yes.
is running behind you into the mall. But it's those instances that really solidify this. Like, I really want to do law enforcement. Like, this is something I really want to do. But also knowing that every day is not like that, because I remember,
No.
a couple different times riding along with you, like you get a call like, okay, hey Shane, you got to go cover crossing guard duties because the crossing guard is sick for this elementary school. And I
Right.
remember, and then doing that, and you did that, but like over a course of a shift, how like many different things could be. And so
Yeah. Every day's different, but different is not necessarily exciting. But it's not all about that. Because you can't have the adrenaline high at this level all the time. It's got to come down at some point.
I'd heard about that whole adrenaline dump thing, and I was like never really experienced it until started doing this stuff with the auxiliary and ride-alongs. And yeah, there's peaks and valleys. You got to. It takes you a minute. It takes you some time to come down off of it. Like
Yeah.
driving fast. I mean, remember with your wife on a ride-along, uh, we were going to eat, and then we got called, and like a Dukes of Hazarded across the hood of her squad car to get back in the car because they're running
Oh.
because there was a one honestly shouldn't have, um, but there was a police chase that started in the city on a car that came out through the county, and the guy had driven out of Baltimore County, went to Anne Arundel, and then the doofus doubled back and came back through the same area of Baltimore County, so we got re-engaged in that call into that chase. Like a scene out of Cops, we come on over this hill and look down, and here's this red Pontiac Grand Am coming with cars behind it. That's what they were chasing, and you see it turn,
Right.
and somehow there was two police cars pursuing that car, and somehow your wife's car ended up being the second police car behind the Grand Am, even though those other two cop cars were like right behind it. She got down there and turned, and we're driving about 50 miles an hour through a neighborhood, coming to the end of the street, and you see a dirt hill, and it's a right or left. I'm like, we're gonna die. I'm bracing myself. Stuff's falling out of her visor, and then she hits the brake, hard turn to the right, and like, you know, that's why I said after that, I always respected Nancy's driving ability. I never had any question that we'd always be safe if Nancy drove. So, um,
That's it.
so I was like, women can drive. So
He said it, not me.
that's right. Women can drive.
Yes,
So
they can.
all of those experiences, I mean, we had some interesting experiences with the auxiliary. We're out on some on foot manhunts chasing a guy down. They had the helicopter going, police canine. I got to help run radar for speeders. Remember, helped another. Actually, I caught the suspect, stopped him in a foot
Hmm.
chase. One night, it was a guy who had been going around town. He had stole a pair of boots, skipped out on a bar tab at a bar, had been homeless. It was going to start to snow, and we got involved in another chase with him. And actually, me and the officer I was riding with, the same one sergeant rode with a lot, we bailed up behind this gas station and restaurant, and we went two different ways. I was near the car, heard the guy. He came around the corner. I threw him up against the wall. The officer I was with came around the corner. I got the guy pinned against the wall, and put him in cuffs. We took him in. So all those experiences that just kept solidifying this. Yes, this is what I wanted to do. Had the chance, started an academy in 2012. Unfortunately, physically, the body said no. So after 2.5 days in, got rushed to the hospital. Originally thought I had a heart attack, and so at
Right.
home I got my wife who's on maternity leave with a week and a half old son, and my daughter's not even 3 years old. And I'm calling my wife to say the doctors think I had a heart attack. Yeah, I was only 36, so uh, doctors wouldn't release me back to go back to the academy, so I had to resign from the academy. Um, and that's where kind of law enforcement pursuit kind of ended. When I went back to work, I was just like, well, maybe, now with two kids, maybe this isn't the right time to do the switch. Again, if you look from a religious perspective, I guess, maybe it was always God's plan. At the time, we had other things going on at home with termite damage we were dealing with at our house and other things. And it's just like, well, maybe, luckily I had a job at the time at the university. I was on a leave of absence. I hadn't fully resigned, which was good. I had a job to go back to.
And which is smart, very
Wait,
smart, because you never know
well, I mean, that's what happens when
what
I had
happens.
I had a good rapport with the department. So, yes, so things worked out, and so then I started to really shift. my perspective. I really started to embrace the work that I was doing in facilities and become more engaged in that profession. But still taking all of my experience with my brief Leo experience and all the security experience working with you and working with some other security companies, and started applying that to what I did in facilities. And so then people in my department started asking me questions when we were designing spaces, and it's like, from a security perspective, what should we be doing? And that's kind
Right.
of where I've pushed my career since then. I've gone back into working for security companies. At one point again, 2016, 2014 to 2017, and worked for a company, and almost 2018. Um,
Mm.
the contract that I was on, I was a site security officer for at a methadone clinic. So my shift was on Saturdays,
Ah, yes.
working security in Baltimore City at a methadone clinic. Again, brought some unique challenges, brought some unique experience. I learned a lot too. Psychology of drug use, a lot of that, the process, of detox and those kind of facilities, how they're supposed to work and how they don't. But it's based upon, again, it goes back to the psychology of the users and those kind of things. So it was really,
Mm.
and uh, again, things I've done for money, but also the adding to the knowledge base that I have with experience and using it to, for behavioral analysis of people, being able to read people. It helps a long way, especially working in security. A big part, and same thing in law enforcement, is learning how to read people. If you're really good at reading people, it can help you with situations and how to navigate or steer a situation. Either in a better direction before it gets worse, or no. There's a lot of science to it.
Absolutely. The observation, not just of what, and it applies not just for law enforcement, but also for daily interactions, business, disciplining your children, or interacting with your children, praising them, getting them to do their chores, and having a healthy relationship with your spouse, and all that. It's amazed me how, yeah, like you said, using that can help you in a professional way, but also in a personal way.
Exactly. And yes, it helps. I didn't like when you're interviewing for jobs. Coming down, like moving to Texas, and again having to interview for jobs and learning how to read people, which was a lot harder to do wearing a mask. Um,
Sure.
you know, and,
Yeah. If all you have is this, you know, how
which
much
I
to go
guess
off of.
for my job, the first job that I got down here probably served me well, because my face has a tendency to give itself away when you're talking to me. So wearing that mask probably saved myself a lot of arguments or extra curricular discussions at work that probably would have not
Right.
turned out well if you fully seen what my face was saying when somebody was saying something to me, like when you want to
Oh
call
yeah.
BS, when you call BS on something. Um,
What's it like? 90? I can't remember the exact percentage, but it's like 90, 85% of all communication is nonverbal. It's the words you say have very small impact. It's the tone, the inflection, the ticks in your face, all that stuff. It really, impacts how you interact with folks and how they respond to you.
which makes you really think about, like, when you go take a polygraph exam for a job, like I did for the, I'm sure you went through too, and the one I did for the police academy, for the police department, makes you think about, like, I can't do anything that I normally do, but this person doesn't know me. They've never seen me. Say they don't know what my potential tells are, or my predisposition to how to respond to certain things. But you're in the back of your head thinking is like, I can't act like I normally do.
Right.
Like the
Yeah.
polygraph examiner, why he's like, why he did two tests, because he's like, why'd you change your breathing? I was just like, I'm trying to calm myself down, man. You got me
Yeah.
you got to strap me to these electrodes. I'm facing the corner. You're sitting behind me. Like,
Right. Your hands are out like this, and you're
yeah,
just staring forward.
you can't move. My
Yeah.
junk is itching like nobody's business right now, and I can't itch it. And
Right.
you're
Keep
sitting,
your feet flat. Right.
right, and you're sitting behind me, which makes me uneasy anyway, because I can't see the door of what's coming in behind me. Like,
Oh.
like I become that, I guess not paranoid, but like over the years too, learning like how to read the room. And like when we go out to restaurants, don't sit with my back to the door. Like I have to see
Right.
everything. Finally,
The
my
pending
family's on
danger.
board with it. Yeah,
Right. Is that saber-toothed tiger entering the cave? We need to know.
correct. So the family understands it. Finally, stops giving me a hard time about it. They just know when they sit down. It's like, no, that's where Daddy's got to sit. Yeah.
Right. Oh yeah,
So
I'm with you.
but it just the nature of the world right now. And then I said before moving back down here, getting a chance to work with you again at Beta, um, again even more because how much the company had grown from I stopped working with Beta in 2007 to start, I think 2018. I think I started back working with you again, um,
Yeah, it's
something like that.
something
So
like that.
but so like how much your organization the organization grew, how many more sites that were, they had contracts with doing the work when every site's a little bit different, um, the different people too, coming in, maybe the different people that have been brought on the company. Some I had to remember previously working, they might not have recognized me, but I remember them. um, and then meeting all the new faces because you had so much more work happening.
Oh
um,
yeah, all
so
the new
you know
sites and
right, again, learning a bunch of new stuff, like how the inside of a cattle ship looks like, it's like a labyrinth.
right. How to shoot a video for a handheld electronic scanner, which is one I
Yeah,
remember quite in
yeah,
depth.
yes.
I mean, your hand was the model for the device, and then there's your visage out there, checking someone in, doing the right thing, and
And
it's yeah,
and again, all experiences, like I think we talked about it before in another episode, that you know having being part of that, growing the field, of security. And I think all the experiences I had, that's one of the biggest takeaways I had is like more companies need to have people that have broad experiences, that I think they'll make better security officers.
yes,
Because I think you would agree that there's always been a joke, and being that I've been on the somewhat Leo side of it, not the full sworn officer side of it, interacting with security officers, and then being a security officer interacting with police officers during events. There's that difference there, where you have some people, some security officers that are, some chuckleheads that should not be in that role whatsoever, and aren't good representatives for the company they're working for. And then
right.
you have people, I tried not to, like, when I had interactions when I was working as a security officer and interactions with law enforcement, I tried not to sound too much like I was a police officer, and like tried not to sound like it, using too much jargon and stuff like that, but just talk to them. Sometimes you could see they would look at you like language I was using, to explain things, because I figured it'd be easier for them to understand the situation.
Mm,
But like,
okay.
what's this? Where did this guy learn this from? Like why? Things like that. So, but I think it goes to help. In any job I've ever done is always making sure that you are a good example for the organization you're working for.
Yeah, I
No
mean
matter
that's key.
no matter what you're doing, because one bad thing, and nowadays with social media, it doesn't take much. One bad instance, and then that company could be shut down in a heartbeat.
A
And so,
company or law enforcement agency reputation, um, and that's a huge, obviously the spectrum of that is not just one agency; it's the entire profession across the country. So, it's very true, and an unfortunate aspect that a small majority can have an influence. But that it's also true in business that the customer goes into a Best Buy, if they still do, with everything online now, but they go in there, they have a bad experience with one person, that's going to be the reflection of the entire company, because that's just like, I think maybe it's human nature. It's take that microcosm of what I experience, and well, that's just how it is everywhere. Perception is reality. So, but anyway,
so, and then I said all that experience is taking to where I'm at now. Like I said, I'm working in a job that everything is intersected together, both facilities and security. Things I never thought I would do. back from the university, stringing goals or painting lines on a field, I've done now where I'm at. Um, Along with right now, it's a heavy emphasis on security things, different facets of security, physical security, physical security procedures, policies, practices. All those other things are coming together. Um, so it's going to be interesting because we're piloting a program. We're the first one in the overall organization I work under. We're the first campus to do what we're going to be doing. So I'm making sure that we do it right so that we are a very good model for the rest of the organization. Which means it
Nice.
could parlay into more ventures for me as well, which is always fun. I always like more challenges. Not that I need necessarily more work, um, but I do like to keep busy. So it's good. Like I said, everything happens in life for a reason, and I guess everything has happened in my life. Like we talked about, we were happy here in Texas. It was really tough moving away from all of our family and friends in Maryland. Um, but it was one of those things that my wife has supported me in all of our years of the different crazy things that I've tried to pursue. So, you know, be there for her, and then it's always again keep with a fun journey. It's been good. We like you down here. We welcome all of our
Yeah.
family and friends to move down here. Unless you don't like to sweat, then you might not want to come here. Um, but there's lots
Can't
of
be
air
much
conditioning.
worse than yeah. Can't be
Yeah,
worse than the Maryland heat.
there's lots of air conditioning and pools. So, but we invite you to come. It's a great place. Uh, just don't bring them too much Maryland with you. I eat.
No, just yeah, just the crabs.
Yeah, just the
Wait a
crabs.
minute.
Not yeah, not
Yeah.
those crabs. Not the political side
Yeah.
of Maryland, but just yourselves. Um, but
Hmm.
in a nutshell, that's me. The things I've done. We could go on for like 2 hours telling different stories. There's lots of interesting stories, but a lot of those, again, story that have all made all of those endeavors interesting and why I did them. Um, Memories that I'm glad I got to be part of. Um, in some respects, it made up for the fact that I didn't get to go in the military. Like I said, if I only, that's the only regret I have in life is actually not being able to go to the military and helping serve this country. Um,
Hmm.
but I looked at it as I served the country here on the state side, working in security, working in the auxiliary Leo capacity. When I was applying for the police department, because I always get people to like, why do you want to be a police officer now? I was like, well, somebody has to do it. Like, well, why does it have to be you? I was like, are you going to do it? Like, I just feel like that, it's not a hero complex. It's not that I have to be anybody's savior. It's just that a feeling that I think a generation ago those people had more of that philosophy that they're going to stand up for what they believe in. They're going to stand up for the community to help others. Where there's a lot of that lost in our current generation. Um, they sit back and record something versus jump in and help out. And so I've always been
Yeah.
somebody
Not very
that
unfortunate.
always been very somebody that will step up to the challenge. I try not to shy away from it. If I have the skill set to help, that's what I want to do. Um, and
I mean,
so
I think you look at things like, after Pearl Harbor, many people enlisted in the military. I mean, there's stories of people who were not able to get into the military, decided they no longer wanted to be on this earth, and because they couldn't serve. Tragic stories of folks committing suicide because I couldn't get in the military. And then you fast forward to 9/11. How many people enlisted became, again, in the military or first responders to want to do something to help? I think it's a common call for anyone in the type of, law enforcement or military, any of the public service like that, to want to help. I mean, it's kind of the cliche. Well, I want to be a cop. Well, I want to help people. But it's true, and it's just something innate. And I think you've definitely reflected that in the things you've done. And I appreciate your words about the inspiration. I never, there's things you don't realize. To me, I was just like, well, I just want to be a police officer. You never realize the ripple effects and how it affects other people around you in positive ways. So
yeah,
appreciate that.
it is, like I said, it just a lot of aspects. Doing the same thing. You switch from the work that you were doing to, with the hard work you put into being the National Guard and stick that out as long as you could, and until you got to the point where like, well, this, I'm not going to go much further with this, so like screw this. And so, but you put forth the effort, you put in the service, an awesome 20-year career in law enforcement. Um, again, making it, and like you said, it was always about helping people, and people are like, well, you can't help everybody, and it's about, but if I can help one person today, that's one more person that hopefully has moving forward, has a better time with their life, has hopefully the experience has helped them. You're not
Yeah,
going to be able to help everybody, but people need help, and so do as much as you can. You know,
yeah.
so
I have one quick story about that, about the ripple effect, and it's not about me or anyone in my family. It's one of the guys that he retired before me. He was my officers when I was a sergeant, and we're putting together his farewell party. And so I was looking through his personnel jacket, and I found this award that he was nominated for life saving. And I was able to track down. There was a woman who was contemplating suicide, and I was able to track her down and speak to her, and just say, "I'm Shane Rose. I'm with this agency, and this officer's retiring. Is there anything you'd like to tell him?" And she was just like, had I had things going the way I wanted to then, I wouldn't have had my daughter. I wouldn't have had the grandchildren now. I wouldn't be here to experience all these things. So the gratitude she, passed on to me to let him know how grateful she was that, all these years later, she wouldn't have had none of these experiences had he not been there to help. So, that's it was very touching, and he was surprised, and almost to the point like people were like, "You didn't really call her. You're just making all that up." No, no, no. I really did find this person somehow. But you know, anyway.
and I think to wrap up everything, I think that's what's needed nowadays. More of that.
Hmm.
There's been plenty of TV shows about police officers and law enforcement and everything like that, but I think more of that light needs to be shown, because I think it would help everybody, the community at large. I think it would help the officers. When you have an officer who has touched people like that, or many officers have touched people like that, but then also maybe they're gotten to the point in their life they're contemplating the same thing, contemplating suicide because things have taken a dog leg to the left in their life, but not realize that they've helped people too, and so that that there is meaning, there is value to their life.
Hmm.
I think more of that is needed, um, because everything, especially with COVID, has been exacerbated, like Dennis said. Um, Last thing, part of this thing I'm having to do with work now is to go through this training program that's through the state of Texas in order to be able to lawfully carry a gun where I'm at. And so part of it, as I have to go through a psychiatric review. I had to speak to a psychiatrist, and they have to sign off saying that I'm mentally fit. And I just had a conversation with them on Thursday, and the lady thanked me, and she said, everything looks good. It was a very short conversation with her. I had to fill out these personality assessments like I did for the police academy. But she just asked me, you feel comfortable with this? And it was just like, it just, yes. And it's just, my opportunity again to give back to the community I'm working in. And
Right.
so hopefully everybody, it's positive, not negative. So,
Nope. Totally agree. Well, I think we've
well,
got another good episode here.
thank you for allowing me to share it with you and you all. And now you have some new things you can share with the misses later. That yes, you are one of my heroes in many respects.
No.
Been there for me through a lot of instances, especially recently again with my dad. So I can't thank you
Nope.
enough. Um, I'm better. My life is better because you're in my life and your family's in my life. So I'm very happy. Um,
We
it was
were
getting
ecstatic to see you last month, and
it was
just
good. It
getting
was
that.
good.
Yeah, getting everyone together. I said if we could put in this the weekend where everyone was there on like an auto loop and just repeat it over and over, that would have been perfectly fine. But you know, separation, different states, it just makes that time together more valuable. So,
Yep.
but
And
yeah,
we will do it more. So
yes.
We love you guys. As always, everybody, thank you for listening. Don't forget, if you want to reach out to us, you can reach us at SOSPodcast76 at gmail.com. SOSPodcast76 at gmail.com. So until next time, stay safe. You stay handsome.
I'll try. I got to get a haircut today.
Okay.
All right.
All right, man.
Bye.
Bye.